live. And we are live. Welcome, everybody. This is the fifth and final Women's Voices glimpse in the series, and I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Saskia Garner from the Suzy Lamplugh Trust. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So, I know a little bit about Suzy Lamplugh Trust and the amazing work that you do. I mean, I'm going to throw it to you, kind of to share with the audience, kind of, because I think there's probably a large number of people who don't know about the amazing work that you guys do.
Thank you. So we're in our 40th year now. The trust was set up following the disappearance of Suzy Lamplugh, who was a young estate agent. You know, she went to work like any of us do, normal working day, went to show her client around a house. It was written in the diary, obviously no mobile phones or anything in those days. And tragically, that was the last that anyone ever saw of Suzy. And her parents incredibly set the trust up within a few months of her disappearing, really to raise awareness about issues of safety, what practices can be improved in the workplace to make sure we know that our colleagues are safe, but also raising awareness about harmful behaviours in society, such as harassment. They did have reason to believe Suzy may have been stalked in the lead up to her disappearance. So all the work we do today around training, awareness raising, lobbying, campaigning for law and policy change is really all to try and work towards a safer society where people feel and are ultimately safer at the end of the day.
And I think that's the thing. I mean, because, you know, dare I say it, I am old enough to sadly remember the case of Suzy's disappearance. And so it's something that I guess I've been aware of. I think so many aren't. And I guess, but if I just think of, you know, that 40-year journey, the world today in terms of, you know, feeling safe is very different to, you know, what it was 40 years ago. You know, in the world as you see it today, what's shifted most in your mind, or is it the same? I mean, it's got more noisy.
Well, I think thankfully there is a growing recognition of how the normalisation of, you know, misogyny and violence against women and girls has really enabled a whole range of harmful behaviours. And I think there is a growing awareness and action to prevent and reduce those behaviours and to open up more and more spaces for particularly women and girls who are often disproportionately affected, to open up the spaces where they can, you know, safely live their lives and not be restricted and harmed and feel unsafe. We have seen great wins. I mean, we campaigned around bringing in the stalking legislation and the harassment legislation. So there is increasing recognition of and embedding in the law, you know, clamping down on those harmful behaviours. But at the same time, we've got obviously online behaviours increasing, harmful behaviours, the misuse of social media and all those platforms that we're on, you know, all day, every day while we're at work and socialising. All these avenues can be misused, sadly, by perpetrators to carry out those harmful behaviours. And what we try and do at the Trust is raise awareness about how those behaviours are carried out, and where people ask us to give some advice and training around what they might be able to do to either keep themselves or others safer, particularly in a work environment. We work a lot with employers to improve their policies and practices around keeping their staff safe, and carrying out that training so that people have some tools that they can use to help keep colleagues and others safe when they're at work.
And I think that's so important because, you know, it's great having policies and it's great that, you know, we can change legislation. But at the end of the day, it comes down to how do we feel as individuals in the places that we visit? How do we feel safe? And I think, you know, through a lot of the work I've done, you know, what I recognise is people's sense and feeling around safety can be very, very different. And, you know, what I might feel safe, or a place I might feel safe in, someone else could feel very, very unsafe in that same place. You know, so how do you, you know, kind of get to that point where, you know, you're translating that policy into something that is really felt by individuals sort of on the ground, as it were? I mean, you talk about the workplace work that you do.
Well, I think those laws and policies are essential for setting the boundaries and establishing what is and isn't acceptable, and, you know, how we want our society to look. But exactly as you say, at the end of the day, it's about listening to people who have been affected by those behaviours. I mean, we carry out a lot of research ourselves with members of the public, and we look at the kinds of behaviours that are happening and where they're happening, and why they might be happening. And I think as far as building safer spaces, we need to be listening to and co-collaborating with people who've been affected by those behaviours. So I'm thinking around, for example, public spaces. We've done a lot of collaboration with the University of Leeds, who carried out research around the safety of women and girls in parks.
Okay.
And showed that very sadly, you know, many women and girls don't feel safe, particularly after dark, exercising, using parks as a recreational space. So we need to look at the reasons why people feel unsafe and start tackling those. I mean, obviously we've been doing that for a very long time, but look at some of the specifics around it. And some of it is people feeling that they're not sure what to do in certain situations. You know, are they going to make a situation worse? What's the safest thing to do in any given situation? And we would never presume to tell anyone what they should or shouldn't be doing in a particular situation. But what we can do is highlight where people are feeling unsafe, where incidents are happening. And behind the scenes, what myself and my team spend a lot of time doing is trying to influence decision makers around, you know, better funding for initiatives to help people feel safer, awareness raising. I mean, obviously some laws are coming in that we hope will send a very strong message to perpetrators around, for example, sexual harassment in public places. You know, that is being criminalised, and many of those behaviours that make people feel uncomfortable and have been normalised to date, you know, will be chargeable as an offence. But it's about giving people those tools to step in if they see others feeling unsafe, and also knowing that someone might come to your help if you are in a situation where you might be feeling unsafe, and building that sense of community and you know, building a reaction to and a prevention of those spaces where those behaviours are currently happening.
And, you know, and I think it's so important. I mean, you know, for me, you know, the fact that it has to be done as a co-creation collaboration, I think is, you know, critical, because we can't know everything. I mean, that's, to be honest, that's what, you know, the Women's Voices event is really about, is that there is no way you could ever know, you know, effectively 80 voices in a room. From my perspective, it's like they're all going to have a different perspective, which is shaped by the experiences that they have had in their lives, and that shapes the narrative. And I think it's recognizing those differences, but that in order to make it better, we have to all come together to co-create, to collaborate, to listen to people's, you know, experiences. I'm just going to pop this up because somebody's just commented. Claudie said, "Love to have, I was brutally assaulted and strangled by 5 youths and now left with a brain injury, sadly. Sadly, the police dropped my case due to no surveillance." You know, and I mean, I what a horrific situation to be in. You know, there are no words with that. And, you know, and it's, this is, and I'm sure this steps into a lot of the work that you see, is that people are being let down because they haven't got a concrete path by which they can actually raise their case. You know, you talked about changing policy and the new policies that are, or legislations that's coming in. You know, that I'm assuming is as a response to the awareness that you've gained from people.
Absolutely, yeah. We really we obviously run the National Stalking Helpline. So
Yes.
as far as personal testimonies around people's experiences of stalking, we have, you know, a huge number of people who tell us their experiences every day. But we are also looking to create a portal on our website where people who've experienced harassment, specifically sexual harassment and other kinds of behaviours, can share their experiences with us if they feel able to, in an anonymised way, so that we can really better evidence and tell people's personal stories, because I think that's what really brings home the reality of some of these behaviours, is how it impacts people on a daily basis. And you know, that disclosure there just is the perfect example of how you know, these incidents stay with people for their lifetimes. And I think from the point of view of the trust, it's obviously lobbying for laws and policies on the one hand, but also really building that sense of community, you know, and giving people confidence that they can make a difference themselves. So 3 years ago, we actually partnered with a charity called Right to Be and L'Oreal Paris to deliver the Stand Up to Street Harassment bystander intervention training, which is completely free. It's on our website. Anybody can sign up to any of the sessions there. But it really gives people some tools and some skills to be better aware of what's happening around them, but potentially, if they feel safe to do so, using one of the 5D methods to help someone move away from that situation. It could be distracting them in some way. It could even be delegating to a member of, you know, public transport staff or park staff to step in and help. It just provides people with a bit of a plan and confidence that, you know, we've all got a role to play, you know, in helping people when we can, and we can all do a little bit. And I'm not talking about anyone putting themselves in any kind of danger. And obviously the police are always there to report incidents too, and that's very important too. But there are little ways that we can build up that sense of community and start reducing the space for those harmful behaviours to be carried out.
And I think that is such a crucial point, Saskia. This idea that, you know, it's actually everybody's responsibility. It's not just, you know, their responsibility or theirs. It's everyone's responsibility. And there are little things that we can do, you know, to. And I suppose something I was having a conversation with the other day with someone was, it's almost like preparing us better. Should something happen, because invariably, sadly, if it did happen, we're then in survival mode. We're then, you know, on this heightened, you know, fear. And it's like, actually, if we've got something somewhere that we can draw from, almost like the subconscious, that we can be ready to use in that moment, you know, should it ever happen, then actually we're sort of, as I say, we're better prepared. And I think that is so important. We really can't wait till it happens as a problem. We need to be better prepared. And I think that is where it is everybody's responsibility to deliver that. So for the women's voices, you know, because I'm, you know, very delighted that you're joining us on Saturday. Not you personally, but sadly, but one of your colleagues. But you know, what would be your hope for those who are coming on Saturday, you know, to walk away remembering about safety and themselves?
Well, I think, you know, to remember that there is a growing community of people who not only recognise that everyone has a right to be and feel safe, and are taking active steps to ensure that, both through lobbying and awareness raising, you know, at the highest levels, but also working on a community level to build up that sense of collaboration and support. As I say, we work with a huge range of employers across a whole wide range of sectors who are actively looking at ways they can keep their employees safer at work, We've championed the research by University of Leeds around making safe public spaces for women and girls, parks. We do a lot of work around public transport. So feel assured that if you're concerned about these issues, you're not on your own. There's a huge amount of work going on to try and improve those spaces, but that if you want to and feel able to, take the bystander intervention training, spread the word, talk to friends and family about it, and particularly if you're undertaking the training, that you're running on your event on Saturday, talk to people about it, think about scenarios and think about the loved ones in your life, like what can you do to support them in recognizing those behaviors, but feeling a bit more empowered with some tools in order to call out those behaviors if you see them happen. And also the more people that do that, hopefully will step in if you yourself find yourself in a difficult situation. So it's that kind of feeling of collaboration, and that these behaviors are not acceptable, and we can all do our little bit to call them out and hopefully prevent them from escalating in the future.
No, I think, you're absolutely right. It is everybody's responsibility. But I am absolutely so grateful for you to joining me today. We could probably talk for a lot longer, but it was just giving them a little glimpse about what they're going to see on Saturday.
Right.
But thank you very much for your time, and I will share all the various different things that you've mentioned in the chat beneath this live stream once we've finished. But thank you so much, Saskia.
Thank you so much, and all the best with your event.
Thank you.